All right, Oscar fans, we're recording this at the beginning of November, Friday, November 9th, and we're going to talk about, I think, what we'd all agree is the hottest race at this year's Oscars. It's Best Actress. I'm Paul Sheehan, executive editor of Gold Derby, and I'm here with Daniel Montgomery, one of our senior editors, and our founder, Tom O'Neill, who is not just an Oscar expert, he's also a collector of Oscar memorabilia. And appropriate enough, talking about Best Actress, Tom, you've got a piece of Oscar history with you.
Right. I have. I own two of Katharine Hepburn's Oscar nominations, including The Rainmaker with Burt Lancaster, wonderful movie. You know, oh Starbuck, if you've ever seen it. And I'm in New York now, out of my Los Angeles place. I have her nomination for Suddenly Last Summer. But this is, in terms of nomination certificates, and I own quite a few of them. This is one of my favorite here. You can see over my shoulder is the poster, the original poster for How Green Was My Valley, which, if you know your Oscar history, is one of the most notorious, Oscar spoilers of all time. When an argument could be made that the worst decision in the history of the Oscars was made in the Best Director race, where John Ford of How Green Was My Valley beat Orson Welles for arguably the greatest movie ever made, according to the American Film Institute. How Green Was My Valley. Well, I own John Ford's Oscar nomination for How Green Was My Valley, which was one of his record 4 wins. So that said, back to Best Actors.
Well, I would argue, Tom, that the most egregious Oscar snub was when Judy Garland lost Best Actress for her Star is Born to Grace Kelly. You're predicting Lady Gaga is going to right that wrong and that she's going to win Best Actress for this new version of A Star is Born. I'm saying, out on a limb, and I know you're all sawing it off right behind me, I'm saying Julia Roberts and Ben is back. Daniel, you're thinking that seventh time will be finally the charm for Glenn Close and the wife. But let's start with Tom. Why Lady Gaga winning Best Actress? Explain.
Well, I'm not totally confident of it because I'm tempted every 3 seconds to change to Olivia Colman, but that in a minute. Lady Gaga is at a point in her pop culture trajectory like Jennifer Lawrence was when she won finally for Silver Linings Playbook. It was like when Jennifer Lawrence won, it was a crown. She was the queen of Hollywood, and the Academy placed that tiara on her head. Lady Gaga, that is her moment now. She has, she's such an appealing person. You know, she's obviously very weird and crazy, but she's not arrogant. One of the most appealing things about her is this little girl lost thing in her eyes as a person and as a performer. But yet, of course, she wowed the Oscar crowd a few years ago with the Sound of Music medley. She's proven herself a talent in many, many forms. And I think that whatever happens to the Star is Born thing, this is Lady Gaga, and they see a real performance there.
A Star is Born.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'm curious. I mean, when they originally announced the picture, I mean, she was going to use her given name, Stephanie. I'm not even going to try and say it. Do you think going by Lady Gaga at all hurts her with, say, the older Oscar voter, not taking her seriously? I mean, is that one of the reasons that you've got Glenn Close winning?
When you've got a race with Glenn Close, who is overdue, this would be her 7th nomination if she gets in, and she hasn't won yet. She's a legend. So the idea of giving it to like a fresh face named Lady Gaga, I do think might feel weird to them, to a more traditionalist Oscar voter, especially when they're already going to have another chance to give Lady Gaga an Oscar for songwriting. So if they feel like they have an out there, they can crown Lady Gaga for Best Song, and give Glenn Close or Olivia Colman Best Actress. So that's the one thing holding me back from predicting Lady Gaga for Best Actress at the moment.
She's kind of grown up too. Today she announced her engagement to be married, and she's really been devoted to the Q&A trail on this. She's out there making, pumping, working the campaign on the Oscar side. And I think that there's this interesting thing we've seen historically at the Oscars. We haven't seen it recently, but we've seen it historically where they do take pop singers like Cher, like Frank Sinatra, and say, okay, you did it. You nailed it here. Now here's an Oscar. So I think she's got a lot going for her. I think it's going to be hard to deny her, quite frankly. But on the other hand, boy, Olivia Colman is coming on strong.
And I'm for and against Lady Gaga. The for element is, Tom, you and I have talked about this endlessly. If Judy had had a song at the end of A Star Is Born, like Barbara gave herself, and Lady Gaga has, this is what sends you out of the theater soaring. You know, Barbara wins the ties with Katharine Hepburn because she sings My Man Live at the end of Funny Girl. Lady Gaga's got that. But I would argue that she's missing for a big chunk of the film. This film, it's called A Star Is Born, and yet it shifts to Bradley Cooper's story for just forever and ever. I mean, you're sitting there going, where's Allie? You know, you're missing her, which again is a good thing, I suppose, if you're hoping to win, that the Oscar voter is missing you when you're not on screen. And so when you come back, they're pleased to see you again. But I feel that that's where she's sort of at slight disadvantage. And I would say Julia Roberts in Ben is Back is the heart and soul of the film. Glenn Close and the wife, I think the flashbacks hurt her, you know, because the film shifts away from her. But how important is that? I mean, how that you're sort of the whole reason for the film, that you're to win that Best Actress award.
Apparently it doesn't mean much to Olivia Colman, because when you watch The Favorite, you keep going, well, where is she? What? I thought this was all movie. What is everybody talking about? Where that? It's all Rachel Weisz. And here comes Emma Stone, and she's dominating the movie. And you really do sit, and I warn you guys, you Oscar nuts who are following this video and podcast, when you go into The Favorite, you've heard all this great buildup, and you're going to be looking for her, and it's going to be surprising to you, as I'm sure it was to many people. But it builds, and what is the opposite of what you're saying, Paul, is that she doesn't have as much screen time as Emma Stone, or certainly not as Rachel Weisz. She may have as much as Emma Stone. And she certainly doesn't have as much dialogue as the others. But she gradually takes over this movie as a fabulous monster. And you see, and not an evil one, but it's selfish, pouty, bratty one. And it's such a grotesque, fascinating performance that's so over the top and shocking and utterly intriguing and honest, and like you're like, whoa! It's so lesbian raunchy too, by the way. Be careful of that going in. Be mindful of that going in. But it's daring and it's fantastic. Now that said, she's kind of like in this same position that Nicole Kidman was in with The Hours, where Nicole Kidman was opposite two very famous co-stars, and she had less screen time, but yet she had the lead role. And Nicole, of course, in her case, was way overdue, and that was a big part of it. But Olivia Colman is the performance people. It's the Green Book. It's what Green Book is to Best Picture. It's the one performance the one thing that people are coming away from all of these mass industry screenings while on the Oscar beat, whether you're covering it as a journalist or you're an Academy member, you walk away going, wow, yeah, A Star Is Born, yeah, this and that. But have you seen The Favorite? Have you seen Green Book? And that's what helped Moonlight win Best Picture, was that late-breaking surge of, yeah, okay, yeah, La La Land, but wow, have you seen Moonlight? There's a sense of discovery to the house cachet and snob appeal that Gaga doesn't have.
And Daniel, you with Glenn Close, me saying at this second, Julia Roberts, may well just be the only nominations for their respective films. That's gotta hurt, right? I mean, that doesn't help your cause. I mean, I know Julianne Moore overdue.
Jeff Bridges' movie, Crazy Heart. I don't remember if that had any other nominations. You don't always have to have them,
right? When you don't have to have them, I think, if you're sort of well respected in the industry.
Still Alice, I think, maybe.
Yeah. Do you, then I wonder, you know, Tom, you're talking about Lady Gaga, the campaigning element of it all, and I think Glenn Close will do anything and everything she can to support the picture.
Available, yes.
Yeah. Certainly Lady Gaga is out there talking. She was at some foundation, SAG-AFTRA foundation, and she's certainly saying all the right things.
Yes.
Talking up Bradley Cooper. Yeah. But I wonder with the newer voters in the Academy, the more international, somebody like an Olivia Colman, you know, who's British, been in, you know,
of course.
Yeah. Currently playing.
Going to win the Critics Awards too, but you know, I was looking at the list of New York and LA films. She's certainly going to win one of those, if not both. But you know, I didn't realize this until I looked on Wikipedia the other day. You can go back 5 years for the LA and New York film critics. They've not gotten Best Actress right if against the Oscars since Blue Jasmine with Cate Blanchett. They both got that correctly, but they've gone their own way. So if Olivia Colman does win, the New York or LA film critics are going to go, well, that's not necessarily a good thing.
Well, Tom, you've written the only book about the Critics Awards. I think those groups would argue that the Oscars got it wrong. It wasn't they didn't get it right. So Daniel, LA film critics particularly, the lead actress in Roma. I mean, I think just given their pattern, she's a very credible contender there.
Yeah, I think I'm predicting her to win LA. The LA film critics almost, very stubbornly, and this I appreciate them about them. They'll often go to a lesser known foreign language performance to win one of their acting awards, or usually an actress. Yeah. So Yalitza Aparicio, she stands a really good chance of winning Best Actress at LA, and Roma could win Best Picture and Best Director from LA also, and get her started on that road. Now it's sometimes hit or miss. Like sometimes those people do, those winners do build up. And towards the Oscars, a lot of times they don't, because they are more off the radar kind of choices. In this case, Roma is very on the radar, so that's going to be very helpful. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if she can pull that out. We've seen it before. We've seen, especially like with breakthrough performances, Catalina Sandina Moreno for Maria Full of Grace several years ago. Isabelle Huppert, who's a veteran, of course, not a newcomer for Elle. So we've seen those foreign language performances get in. I don't know if she can win, especially because it's her debut. But yeah, she's definitely a threat.
I just want to mention here, by the way, people watching this about the Oscars, at Gold Derby, we're predicting the Oscar nominations, but we're also predicting who's going to win the Gotham Awards. We're predicting who's going to win New York, LA, the National Society of Film Critics, all of those things. So please predict, because every hour those odds get updated, and Hollywood follows them. Tom, you know that. You know that you change a prediction, you get a phone call. Why have you moved this? Why have you done that? So what about, and I was so pleased when you look at that Best Actress race, how many women over 40 are in the running? Really, that Lady Gaga is the only ingenue. We used to always say it was a beauty pageant, and the Emma Stones, Nicole Kidman's, etc. So Viola Davis for Widows. But Melissa McCarthy, talk about a transformative role. I mean, could either of you see her just sort of, this is, she replaced Julianne Moore. Julianne Moore dropped out just a few days before filming. Melissa McCarthy's husband had already been cast. Somehow that she ends up doing it. Could either of you see her winning? How shocked would you be, Daniel, to see her win?
I would be pretty surprised to see her win. Not surprised to see her nominated. It depends on how the season goes. She ends up upsetting some of the favorites, no pun intended, for the Critics Awards. We could see that momentum build. She could get in at SAG again, and has potential to win there. She's very popular. This is a transformative role, as you said. The film's fortunes as a whole, I feel like if she can push that film into, say, a Best Picture nomination, get that additional supporting nomination for Richard E. Grant, a screenplay nomination, like if that enthusiasm for her can carry the film along more than maybe we're expecting it to at the moment, then I think that would be a huge sign for her. But right now, I'd say that would be a surprise.
Tom, what do you think?
She'll definitely be nominated, and she has her contingent of supporters, but I don't think she can win because it's not really a sympathetic role. They do a good job making her sympathetic. I think they do too good a job. It would have been better to have left her as mean and diabolical as the character intended. They keep trying to redeem her every time she does something terrible, but it's a wonderful film, and it's a great discovery, and it really helps that he's playing against type. They love that. Here's a comedic star doing a dramatic turn, and it's really, really a fun romp. But I just don't think it's enough. She's Melissa McCarthy on screen. That's the problem. Lady Gaga. Let's go back to that for a second. I think there's an element of, even though that's Lady Gaga up on screen, we don't know her personally enough. She's been very, very evasive as an elusive personality on the celebrity scene, but that's added to her mystique. But the thing about this movie that drives me nuts, I can't stand hearing it. You hear it everywhere, and I'm just so sick of it. Before I went and saw A Star Is Born, I was sitting in the audience of a screening of Colette in New York with Peter Travers, one of our experts, of course, Rolling Stone. And he goes, "Oh, Tom, I just saw A Star Is Born." This was months ago, right? I just saw A Star Is Born a couple days ago. This was before Toronto. Peter got he went, "Oh, how was it, Peter? How was it?" And he goes, "Oh, it's really good. And, you know, Lady Gaga, she's wonderful. And she does all of these scenes without makeup. This without makeup shit, I'm so sick of it. It's like, ooh, give her an Oscar because she went without makeup." When I went and saw this thing in Toronto, and the theater was empty. I was at the gala presentation, and the theater was emptying out. There are people in the lobby go, "Oh, did you see Lady Gaga? Oh, those scenes without makeup." Again, it's like, what? And I walked out of there. I'm walking the streets of Toronto at 10 or 11 at night back to my hotel. And as I turn the corner, there's this little cluster of girls in high-heeled shoes and short, skimpy dresses with their Blackberries. They're obviously publicists, Hollywood publicist types, standing there who had just come out of the film ahead of me. "Oh, did you see Lady Gaga without makeup?" It's this idea that she actually, I don't agree with it at all, but it seems to be the consensus that she does give a transformative performance, because it's not transformative the other way, becoming, some grotesque figure. It's the other way. It's becoming human like us, that therefore she deserves an Oscar. And that's what I find so hilarious.
Yeah, there is sort of a de-glam, if you either cake yourself in makeup like Gary Oldman, or just strip yourself completely down. There is a definitely appeal for that, to just change yourself in some way, to make people see you the way they haven't. Although now, Tom, it sounds like you're now campaigning against The Star Is Born for best makeup and hairstyling, so they'll be very disappointed by that.
As we're talking about this, I mean, Widows is getting ready to open. I mean, are we underestimating Viola Davis? I mean, that's a starring role for her in a really interesting film, by Steve McQueen, who did 12 Years a Slave. She's certainly the heart and soul of that picture. And she's somebody who, Lady Gaga's a newcomer to Hollywood. I mean, Viola Davis has sort of paid her dues. Yes, I know she just won a couple of years ago, but she's in that honeymoon period, right, Tom? I mean, if you're going to win a second Oscar, this is the time, isn't it?
And you really root for her in this movie. It's a delightful film. Paul and I saw it together in Toronto, and as we walked out, we turned to each other and said, "That's going to make a fortune in the box office," because it's the perfect date movie. It appeals to men, it appeals to women, and she gives this Academy worthy performance in a heist movie. Mm-hmm. You think, well, it's not normally the genre that wins acting awards, but there are cases of that, of course. And she's just winning, and she breaks your heart 100 times in the movie, and you root for her. And then this one terrible thing happens to her, and your heart cracks, and you're just totally on her side when she goes out to really, kick butt, take hostages, or take no hostages, and win the day. And she carries the whole film in such a luminous way that she'd get my vote probably. But so she's really in this race. Don't dismiss the movie for its genre. It's a fantastic movie.
And then, sorry, I'm just thinking about other people that we haven't mentioned. I just got struck by Emily Blunt and Mary Poppins Returns. We all know Julie Andrews won for the original. Emily Blunt's never been nominated. And I kind of wonder if I always think back to the year that Richard Dreyfuss beat Richard Burton, because he had Goodbye Girl and he had Close Encounters. Diane Keaton had Annie Hall and Looking for Mr. Goodbar. So Emily Blunt's got A Quiet Place from the beginning of the year. They're watching it on screeners. She's so riveting in that. And then you couldn't get a more different role than Mary Poppins. But
here's what worries me about Mary Poppins is, and I haven't seen it yet. It's screening tomorrow, I think, for the first time to Oscarologists in LA, and I'm not there for that screening. But here's what worries me, and it may just be a wrong impression I got from viewing the trailer, but she looks mean. She looks like a mean Mary Poppins, doesn't she? I mean, Julie Andrews was stern and disapproving and all of that, but in a kind of little winking way. Emily Blunt looks mean, and so I'm not. I'm worried about that for her, because I want the movie to be fantastic.
What about Daniel? Do you have who's sort of in your bubbling up there that you could see putting in that you don't have right now?
I've got, I've got a little bit of wishful thinking for Elsie Fisher for 8th grade. If she could come in and surprise, kind of in that Convention Wallace kind of youth performance. That's an actual performance that she's actually doing like a real acting performance here. It's not just the director making this happen or through editing. She's young and she's precocious, and the film is one of the most acclaimed of the year. I could see her sweeping up some Best Breakthrough Performance awards from critics and other awards. She might win Best Young Actor Actress at Critics' Choice. So she'll be on the radar throughout the season. So I've kind of had her bubbling in my 6th, 7th, 8th spot. Every once in a while, I'll put her in my 5th spot if I'm feeling optimistic. So I'm really excited for that one. But since it came out in the summer, that's definitely going to need some critics awards support to bring it back into the consciousness.
And I hope people have noticed that one of the reasons we have Daniel at the site, besides his great writing, is because he can say all those names. The woman from Roma, the woman from Beasts of No Nation. Is because Tom, we don't even try. That's why I'm sticking with Julia Roberts. I can say that. Again, that's sort of, I know that's wishful thinking, but I would love to at least see her be nominated again. I think it's she's the heart of that picture. It's really, talk about, no makeup. I mean, you see Julia, there's lots of close-ups on her. There's a woman who's in her 50s who looks like she's in her 50s. I just loved it. And it's also, the Lucas Hedges factor, right? I mean, he's a good luck charm. And I think most of us have Nicole Kidman being nominated and supporting for Boy Erased. And then, she's giving, Nicole Kidman's also in Destroyer, which is that you don't even recognize that it's Nicole Kidman.
Speaking of Lucas Hedges, it'll be interesting to see how many people can win Oscars for playing his mom, because you've got Julia Roberts and Nicole Kidman this year. Of course, Frances McDormand won last year for playing his mother. So he really is a good luck charm. I'm not going to discount Julia Roberts. She's having kind of maybe I guess it would be a third act to her career. She's in this Amazon series Homecoming, which this movie star wouldn't be caught dead on TV before. Now she's doing this really, really raw kind of performance in this TV series, in addition to this role in Ben is Back, which is not the kind of Julia Roberts glamour role that you usually see her in. It really feels like she's bringing back this kind of gritty side to her that helped her win the Oscar for Erin Brockovich. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of this kind of work from her. And I think especially if the film is a hit, and Homecoming gets her, she could be at the Golden Globes twice nominated. So I think she could sneak in.
And we also, just as we wrap up, I mean, I think talking about those precursors, like SAG, like Golden Globes, Tom, you always say this is when your Oscar audition, the acceptance speech part of it. We know people like Julia Roberts, we know they can give a good speech. I'm worried about an Olivia Colman or a Lady Gaga not sort of delivering when it comes to their acceptance speeches. Olivia Colman, sort of the actor's actor, English, very reserved. How important do you think that is still?
Well, it certainly put Hilary Swank on the map when she won the first time that for Boys Don't Cry at the Golden Globes. She was so winning there that carried her all the way to the Oscars. But then you look at the Christoph Waltz's Oscar wins. I mean, he talk about the worst acceptance speeches in the history of and he just kept winning and winning. He's 2 for 2. He's one of those sacred actors that's 2 for 2 at the Oscars. So I kept thinking, God, someone's got to do an intervention with Waltz, because those speeches are so bad. they'd be rambling and he'd be off the rails, but it didn't seem to matter. Everyone just kept voting for him. He deserved those Oscars. I'm not saying that he didn't. In fact, I told Christoph Waltz early on during his Inglourious Bastards, when the movie was still not being shown widely, and Harvey had me come down and meet with him, a special session downtown in Manhattan to do an interview with Christoph Waltz. And I said to him, I said, you're probably going to win the Oscar. And he was like, oh my God. And so to this day, when I see Christoph Waltz, he looks at me and goes, you were the first to tell me. But anyway,
having said, I do pay attention, particularly to no offense, Daniel, to what Tom says, because Tom's the one that sort of had Eddie Redmayne winning at SAG. Everyone else said Michael Keaton because he's playing an actor in Birdman. So, but I do wonder, when you talk about acceptance speeches, I think about Henry Winkler finally winning an Emmy, this year for Barry, having been nominated 40 plus years ago for Happy Days, referencing that. So Daniel, I mean, how many acceptance speeches does Glenn Close have that are yellowing in her purse? 6 losses. Is it that Tom, does Oscar have a heart? Will they spurn her yet again? Will they send her to the record books now she'll outpace Deborah Carr and Thelma Ritter what do you think, Daniel? Do you think that's going to be what puts her over?
Honestly, if she wins one of these, early televised prizes,
yes, exactly.
What she needs to do is play it up, but in a good humored way. Like maybe she'll like reach into her purse or something and be like, oh no, this is the wrong speech. Oh no, this was for Fatal Attraction. Oh no, this was for, and so just play it, just have, poke fun at herself, but also acknowledge it's like, yeah, I've been waiting for this for a long time.
And Tom, you mentioned, and gosh, this is when I wish we had Joy Thang here, one of our other writers who knows every nomination. But didn't Glenn Close lose for Fatal Attraction to Cher? Didn't she?
That's right, she did, yes.
So I wonder if the older Oscar voters kind of go, ooh, did we get that one wrong? Like Julianne Moore not winning, really not winning for Far From Heaven over Nicole Kidman. And that's the kind of the do-over aspect of it.
And that is a case of where when Julianne Moore won for Still Alice, that it was the narrative. The fact that she had never won drove that victory. I remember, I won't say who, but it's somebody you both know and somebody very famous in the industry, an Oscar voter, turned to me early on during that campaign and said, I have no intention at all of seeing that Still Alice movie, but I'm going to vote for her, for Julianne Moore. That's what carried her, but I don't think the wife is enough. It's not. Still Alice had the Alzheimer's. It had this big grandiose acting, theatrical thing going on, and in the wife, there's just this kind of inner turmoil and all that.
Well, like I always say, I mean, we can think we know about it, but really the people out there that are watching this, that are making their predictions, driving our odds. I did well last year, but really because I sort of surveyed the playing field based on everyone else's input. So please update your predictions. You've got more than 2 months to go, so they'll keep changing and keep coming back to the Gold Derby YouTube channel to watch more of this. And from our other editors, and also Tom does these with real experts. So.
But anyway, we will sign off with a close-up version of what we're talking about here. This is the Oscar nomination of Katharine Hepburn, one of 12. It was a record in its day for The Rainmaker. I highly recommend watching it. It was a Broadway play that it doesn't really hold up in terms of modern drama, but it's a wonderful.
Oh, Tom, how could you put down a 40-year-old New Englander playing a 20-something-year-old farm girl?
I know. The whole thing is so preposterous.
Okay. Thanks, guys.